I'm gonna breathe.
So I thought of a really stupid idea. I've been infatuated by omnidirectional treadmills ever since mine arrived, and I've been wanting to push it and myself the furthest I possibly could. And this led me to the decision to run the complete length of the Skyrim overworld and back in VR on the Katwalk C. And this turned into probably the biggest virtual reality challenge I have ever undertaken. And I kind of came out with a different perspective of the Katwalk, Skyrim in some ways, and virtual reality as a whole. Initially, I started this challenge to see if it was even possible, see how I'd react to doing it entirely in VR, and to see if the Katwalk even lasts long enough through the stress. And I got an answer to all of those. So let's go on a deep dive to see what happens when you push VR hardware and biological hardware to their limits together. The map of Skyrim is pretty large. It's certainly not the largest map of any game, but it is diverse and populated with roads that connect most of the points on the map. The actual real-life size of Skyrim has been hotly debated for years now, but in order to get a real sense of how far I'm going to be running, the closest estimation seems to be using Skyrim's height map, composed of 119 cells across and 94 cells high. And the cells are a standardized measurement across Bethesda games, which gives us a rough approximation that the Skyrim overworld map is somewhere between 14.3 and 14.8 square miles. Now, the standard running speed in Skyrim is 11 miles per hour, which wouldn't be my normal running pace, especially considering that pace would put me nearly at world record times for a marathon, and I think we all know that I'm not quite capable of that. So, doing some very rough math between estimated distances of my chosen path and my actual real-life mile pace mixed with Skyrim's travel speed from Whiterun to Riften and back all the way down to Solitude, I'll be running a Skyrim distance of about 22 miles, and with my estimated pace of around 6 miles per hour, I'll be running in VR for roughly an equivalent of 13 miles. So I strap up and get started. I really have no idea if the Katwalk C will even make it out, or if I'll even be able to run that long on the catwalk. And I'll give some background. The Katwalk C is an omnidirectional treadmill for use in VR, kind of like the devices you see in Ready Player One. But I'll be the first to tell you, it's not exact walking. You pretty much have to learn how to walk all over again in VR. Otherwise, it's like walking on ice. But there's another problem. Not sure if you can tell, but these aren't running shoes by any means, more like bowling shoes. But we'll get back to that in just a bit, because it's important, especially if you're looking at a catwalk for experiences like this. Now, the run. Right away, I'm just gonna say it. Running on the catwalk is like running in sand, except the sand is ice and my legs are on fire. It feels like it takes 30% more effort to do anything, and on top of that, like I said, my running form just isn't the same on this thing, and within a first few minutes, I'm already feeling it. But running in VR is pretty nice. It certainly has a weird psychological effect, and that part only gets creepier and more surreal as this experiment runs out. Distances I've always known and subconsciously measure melt away because they don't make sense anymore. And with mods, I'm able to see my virtual arms move just like I've always seen, except they're not my arms. Something weird happens when you run or physically exert yourself, whether that be in VR or reality. While running through a park, this may mean that a sunset looks particularly pretty, or you might just feel good about yourself, but replace physical stimuli with a virtual reality, and things get weird in the brain. It started out as a very heightened immersion. I was running in Skyrim, and that's what I was doing. I'm not pressing an analog stick or W key, I'm pumping my legs and watching Skyrim go past me in every direction. I'm reading signs the exact way I'd be reading street signs while running. Nothing crazy happens yet, but while performing a physically difficult task in VR, I was certainly more immersed than normal. It was kind of in some ways an overwhelming feeling and thought-provoking moment, but I just had to keep going, and looking at the map, I had a long way to go. On the route to Solitude, I hit my stride, and this is probably what you've been waiting for in terms of how this experience has affected me, and I want to preface this by saying, extremely intense physical exertion mixed with VR is a trip. Due to pretty much running in sand and already running for miles, my body was in immense pain, and it's like a part of my brain just shut off. The only thing I could really focus on was that pain and to keep running. Otherwise, I'd just stop. Now, this is a fine and dandy feeling while running on a treadmill or down your street, but I'm not running down the street. I'm running in freaking Skyrim. And this became my reality. The pain so intense that I didn't have the time to take in anything, or to look at polygons, or to notice shoddy textures. It's me, my legs, and my environment. Two moments stood out to me. One, feeling my burning legs and looking up into the sky to a massive, beautiful moon. And it was a special moment. I don't know. And the second one, far more psychologically impactful for myself. I got so tired at a point that I almost thought I was going to pass out, but I had already made it that far, so I had to keep going. And I'll do my best to describe visually what happened. There's a phenomenon called runner's high. It's debated, but it is a real thing. It's basically a massive rush of endorphins and endocannabinoids right when you need it, leading to a short-lasted sense of euphoria and mood, and sometimes even a feeling of slight invincibility. Now, this feeling in VR with a VR headset on and on a Katwalk Omnidirectional Treadmill led to some weird things. My vision was slightly altered almost to the point of hallucination. And before you call BS on this, try running about 10 miles in sand and tell me that your vision is totally perfect after. What I was seeing is almost like the slight screen door effect of the Index was a layer on its own separating from the background, and everything flying past me was in between that and the background. But in these moments, through, I don't know, fatigue-induced hallucinations, it felt like Skyrim had come alive in ways I didn't have before, and I was in it.
Oh, it's so dark. I can barely see anything. I don't know where I'm going. Are you guys seeing this?
The last stretch of anything can sometimes be the easiest, but it can also just as easily be the hardest. At this point, if calculations are correct, I've been running for a little over 2 hours and nearly 13 miles on an omnidirectional treadmill. First off, hats off to the Index. It's actually a pretty comfortable running headset. Who knew? Even though I was dripping in sweat, the lenses really didn't fog that much, which was nice. However, the Katwalk didn't fare as well. I talked earlier about the sliding nature of this device and the friction material on the bottom of the shoes that allows you to slide easily. Well, I learned pretty quickly that the friction material is finite and will run out. This made the final stretch of my Skyrim run extremely awkward in terms of my running gait and in terms of difficulty. What started out as running through sand turned into running into quicksand. You can see just how much wear and tear this had on these shoes. In fact, after this, they're toast. I need new ones. And I gasped and practically cried to the finish line of Solitude's gates. At the very least, we had made it. And I want to say this, the Katwalk C is not meant to be a treadmill as in a running workout treadmill. I learned this firsthand. In terms of my body though, honestly not much happened. I did have slight knee pain afterwards, but not nearly as many bodily issues as I thought I would have, especially with this curved surface. But this is not something I'd recommend you to do every single day as a workout regimen. I'm just being real. Long-term effects may be entirely different. The bigger problem lies with just wearing the device out. Screws came loose, the friction strap broke off of my shoe at one point, and the actual material is completely worn down on the shoes. If you do this often, expect to go through a lot of these, or figure out something better as a friction material. You can actually see all of the material all over the Katwalk from the experience, and I don't want anyone buying this thinking they're buying a piece of gym equipment. This isn't a sole workout device. But I did put it through hell, and it does still function function, so props there. And I'm not saying you shouldn't run on the catwalk at all or for long periods of time. It's an amazing experience and I've never felt anything like that in VR. It's a weird detachment of the brain and sensory organs and pain that just felt really cool. I'm happy I did the challenge, but I kind of feel like I'm gonna be chasing that feeling now, unfortunately. But I guess that's why this channel is called Thrillseeker. And at the end of the day, this isn't just running. And in some ways, it's hardly running. But to be real, I feel like I kept running not because I wanted to run more, but because I wanted to be more immersed. The more pain I felt my legs were in, the less I was paying attention to my surroundings, and the more I felt part of the world, even though I know it's just a game and simulation. And I think this kind of proves something that I didn't even believe in before. Fitness and VR, as boring as that sounds, kind of are a good match. I don't know if I could have ran for 2.5 hours straight on a treadmill or on a sidewalk. I'm just out of shape. I haven't seriously ran in over a year. But the weird mix between reality feelings and virtual reality environments legitimately kept me going, and the rewards when reaching destinations felt realer than ever. So, if I have a few things you can take away from this video, 1, the Katwalk C is not a dedicated workout device. Yes, you will burn way more calories using it than not, but it's not meant for that, and I'm not endorsing that. However, detaching your brain a little from VR by pushing your body can be a really cool experience, and it's a totally natural immersion booster. You're gonna sweat and it's gonna be uncomfortable, but you can do it, and it's a fun thing to try even if you're just using something like natural locomotion. You don't need to spend $1,500 to experience it. And you may see VR just a little differently, because after all, virtual reality is cemented by our sensory organs and bodily experiences. Truly bringing your body into the mix is something you don't need extra hardware for, although it does help. But all you really need is a little more effort, and a little more effort can mean a little more immersion. I did stream this all live on my Twitch channel. I cried a little, spoke absolute nonsense while deliriously running, and I do stupid stuff like this all the time. So if you do want to check that out, I'll leave my Twitch channel below, and my Discord server is also a great place to hang out with like-minded VR people. Thank you to everyone that showed up that day to cheer me on, and thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas that you see on screen now. I couldn't do any of this without any of you. Subscribe if you want. I'm constantly trying to push VR as far as possible, and if you are too, then come on this journey with me. And of course, like this video if you like it. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Much love, Thrill out.